Bahia is one of the 26 states of Brazil and is located in the northeastern part of the country on the Atlantic coast. It is the fourth largest Brazilian state by population and the fifth largest by area. Bahia's capital is the city of Salvador, located on a spit of land separating the Bay of All Saints from the Atlantic. Once a monarchial stronghold dominated by agricultural, slaving, and ranching interests, Bahia is now a major manufacturing center whose last three elections have been dominated by the Workers' Party. The name of the state derives from the earlier captaincy of Bahia de Todos os Santos, named for Bay of All Saints, a major feature of its coastline. The bay itself was named by the explorer Amerigo Vespucci during his second voyage, when he found it on All Saints' Day, 1502. He named it after his parish church in Florence, San Salvatore d'Ognissanti. Over time, the bay became distinguished as the Bay of All Saints, the state as Bahia, and its capital first as Bahia and then finally as Salvador. Geography. Bahia is bordered on the east by the Atlantic Ocean, with its Bay of All Saints the largest in Brazil. Under the Brazilian Empire, it was bound on the north by the Rio Real and by the Jequitinhonha on the south. But Bahia now comprises an irregular shape bound by other states of Brazil, some of which were formed from it. In the north, it is now bordered by Sergipe, Alagoas, Pernambuco and Piauí. In the west, it is bordered by Goiás in the north and Tocantins in the south. In the south, it is bordered by Espírito Santo and Minas Gerais. The state is crossed from west to east by many rivers, but the most important is the São Francisco, which starts in Minas Gerais and runs through western Bahia before emptying into the Atlantic between Sergipe and Alagoas. Formerly plied by paddle wheel steamers, the river is only navigable to small modern craft, but is still vital to the arid west since it continuously supplies water during seasons when many other smaller rivers dry out. The Sobradinho Dam created one of the largest reservoirs in the world. Other major hydroelectric projects along its length include the Paulo Afonso hydroelectric complex and the Itaparica-Luiz-Gonzaga Dam. Regions. Bahia's geographical regions comprise the Atlantic Forest, the maritime region radiating from the Bay of All Saints, the site of sugar and tobacco cultivation, and the Planalto, which includes the Sertão region of Bahia's far interior. The state is crossed from north to south by the Diamantina tableland, which divides it into two distinct geographical zones. To the east, the soil is fertile and the rain falls regularly. The western area is more arid and its predominate vegetation the cerrado. The natural aridity was greatly worsened over the 19th century by the cowboys' habit of starting wildfires each year to improve the quality of the grass. The Chapada Diamantina National Park is home to picturesque chapados plateaus with steep edges which are visited for the natural beauty, but for the most part the tough conditions of the interior cause it to be much less developed than the coast. Coconut Coast. The Coconut Coast, in the north of Bahia, corresponds to a total of 193 kilometers of coastline, where coconut groves, dunes, rivers, swamps and freshwater lagoons are abundant, as well as the presence of the Atlantic rainforest. The Green Road, a road that connects Manseco in the far north to Praia da Forte, crosses this beautiful region, maintaining a critical distance from the areas of environmental preservation. For this reason, the route is sometimes more than 10 kilometers from the beach. At Praia da Forte, the road meets the Coconut Road leading to Salvador, passing through spots, which are now integrated in the urban development of the state capital. In this region is located Deputado Luis Eduardo Magalhães International Airport. Bay of All Saints, the largest bay on the Brazilian coast. The Bay of All Saints has a large number of islands with tropical beaches and vegetation. In its 1,052 square km, it contains 56 islands, receives fresh water from numerous rivers and creeks, and bathes the first capital of Brazil and the largest in the northeast, Salvador, and more than 10 municipalities. It is the largest navigable bay in Brazil and one of the most favorite spots for nautical sports due to its regular breezes, medium annual temperature of 26 degrees Celsius and sheltered waters. The bay offers various leisure options with hundreds of vessels of all different types, especially saveros, schooners, motorboats, jet ski that crisscross its crystalline waters on maritime excursions to the islands, and boat races. Major popular events and sport activities occur throughout the year, beginning on January 1st, with the procession of Bom Jesus dos Navegantes greeting the new year. All Saints has also been traditionally the venue for rowing contests at the Encida dos Tineiros in Salvador, and now the bay is included in the routes of the great international regattas, such as the Rally Les Isles du Soleil, Regatta Hong Kong Challenge and the Expo 98 Round the World Rally, which consider the bay an important stop along the route. The islands of the bay are a separate attraction. Some are privately owned, others were declared a state heritage and transformed into environmental protection areas or ecological stations. Other islands of the patrimony of 12 municipalities located around the bay. Only a few are uninhabited and many have small communities where the natives live on fishing and tourism. All have common characteristics, such as calm sea, dense vegetation, especially coconuts and bananas, as well as vestiges of the Atlantic forest. Of the 56 islands, the most important are Itaparica, Madre de Deus, Mara, Frades, Meadow, Bom Jesus dos Passos, Dende Coast. The Dende Coast, south of Salvador, is surrounded by verdant vegetation, clear waters, islands, bays, coral reefs and a very diversified fauna. It is connected to Salvador and the southern part of the state by ferry boats and the BA001 highway, the second ecological highway along the Bahian coast, which connects the southern coastline and the extreme southern part of the state. It includes the municipalities of Valença, and the international attractions of Morro de São Paulo, Camamu, Taperoa, Igrapuna, Itabira and Marau. The mouth of the Rio Una, in the form of a delta, contains 26 islands, the largest of which is Tinhara, where the Morro de São Paulo is located. At Boipeba and Quero, which are part of the archipelago of Tinhara, the diversity of the ecosystems enables visitors to practice water sports, walk along the beach, follow trails in the rainforest and bathe on completely deserted beaches such as Garapua. Cacao Coast. Along the southern coast of Bahia, the Cacao Coast preserves ecological sanctuaries with dozens of kilometers of beaches shaded by dense coconut groves, the Atlantic forest, large areas of wetland vegetation and cacao plantations, the great allies in the struggle to defend the preservation of the Atlantic forest. Walking along paths in the forest or along the beaches, horseback riding along the coast, boat trips up the vast number of rivers are some of the options that the region offers. Here one can find environmental protection areas at Itacara, Serra Grande and the Lago Encantada in Ilha, the Biological Reserve of Una and the Ecological Reserve of Praina at Itacara. For the Morro de Pernambuco to Canaveres, there are 110 kilometers of beaches, some of them highly popular, and other deserted, with clear water. water, reefs, inlets, coconut grove and an infinite number of estuaries of rivers which extend throughout the Cacao Coast. Highway B001 links the municipalities, nearly always bordering the coastline. The most important locations at Cacao Coast are Itacara Ilha Acutus and Olivenca. Discovery Coast. The Discovery Coast preserves, virtually intact, the landscape seen by the Portuguese fleet described in the first pages of the history of Brazil. There are approximately 150 kilometers of beaches, inlets, bays, cliffs, numerous rivers and streams surrounded by the verdant coconut groves, wetlands and the Atlantic forest. Over land and sea, the excursions are always associated with nature, and there are various types of water sports: walks, trips on horseback, surfing and deep-sea diving. Recife da Fora, Coroa Alta and Trancoso for one-day schooner excursions. BA001 and 2 ferry boat systems over the Rio João da Tiba and Rio Buranem connect the municipalities with the coast. Trips from Barra de Gai, passing through the Parque National de Monte Pascoal, Caraíva, Trancoso, Arraial de Juda, the environmental protection areas of Santo Antonio and Coroa Vermelha, to the mouth of the Rio João da Tiba as far as the Rio Jequitinhonha are among the various ecological trips for visitors. Whale Coast. The Abrolhos archipelago in the extreme southern part of Bahia is an ecotourism attraction for diving and whale watching. Whales are frequent between July and November. This region contains one of the largest concentrations of fish, in terms of volume and variety, per square meter on the planet. There are 17 species of corals. The Whale Coast includes the municipalities of Alcobaça, Caravelas, Nova Vicosa and Mucuri, and its main attraction is the Abrolhos Marine National Park. Diamantina Tableland. The geographical center of Bahia is the Diamantina Tableland region. In this mountainous region with a diversified topography, 90% of the rivers of the Paraguacus, Jucuy, and Rio das Contas basins have their source here. There are thousands of kilometers of clear waters that spring from these mountains and descend in cascades and waterfalls to plateaus and plains, forming beautiful natural pools. The vegetation mixes cactus species of the Caatinga dry lands with rare examples of the mountain flora, especially bromeliads, orchids, and sempervivas. On the area one can find the 3 highest mountains in the state: Pico de Barbado, 2,080 meters high; Pico Itabira, 1,970 meters; and Pico das Almas, 1,958 meters. Another scenic attraction is the Cachoeira da Fumaça, which falls 420 meters, the Gruta dos Brejos, the largest cavern opening of Bahia, and the Poco Encantado. There are so many natural attractions that it is possible to choose between subterranean routes in caves, a trip to waterfalls, trek along old gold mining trails, or follow the steps of the Prestes Column, rappel, climb mountains, or go horseback riding in the Vale de Capão, Vale de Pati, in the midst of small local communities. Many of the sites are protected by the National Park of the Diamantina Tableland and the Environmental Preservation Area Serra de Barbado and Marimbus, Araquara. There are opportunities to take long bikes and to travel on horseback, mountain bike, or off-road vehicles. Climate: tropical. In addition to its considerable size, it has the longest coastline of the country, 1,103 kilometers long, with 68% of its territory located in the semi-arid zone. The state presents diversified climates and an average rainfall that varies from 363 to 2,000 millimeters per year, depending on the region. History: the Portuguese Pedro Álvares Cabral sighted Monte Pascoal near Itamaraju and landed at what is now Porto Seguro on the southern coast of Bahia in 1500, claiming the territory for Portugal. In 1549, Portugal established the city of Salvador on a hill facing the Bay of All Saints. The city and surrounding captaincy served as the administrative capital of Portugal's colonies in the Americas until 1763. It remains the religious capital of Brazil's Roman Catholic hierarchy, with its archbishop serving as the national primate. Salvador holds the country's oldest cathedral and first medical college, as well as the highest number of churches per capita of any Brazilian state capital. Bahia's captaincy was the first to fail, with its lands reverting to the Portuguese crown in 1549. While Portugal was united with Spain, the Dutch East and West India Companies tried to conquer Bahia but were largely defeated in the area, with Dutch Brazil restricted to Pernambuco. Bahia was a center of sugarcane cultivation from the 16th to the 18th centuries and contains a number of historic towns, such as Cachoeira. Dating from this era, integral to the sugar economy was the importation of a vast number of African slaves. More than a third of all slaves taken from Africa were sent to Brazil, mostly to be processed in Bahia before being sent to work in plantations elsewhere in the country. The state was the last area of the country to join the Empire of Brazil, as members in the local elite remained loyal to the Portuguese crown after the rest of the country proclaimed independence under Pedro I on September 7, 1822. Control of the province was disputed in several battles, mostly in Pirihá, before the Portuguese were fully expelled on July 2, 1823. Under the name Bahia Independence Day, this date vies in local importance with Brazilian Independence Day, which commemorates Pedro's September 7 proclamation. It became a Brazilian state in 1889. Charles Darwin visited Bahia in 1832 on his famous voyage on the Beagle. In 1835, Bahia was the site of an urban slave revolt, particularly notable as the only predominantly Muslim slave rebellion in the history of the Americas. Under the Empire, Bahia returned 14 deputies to the General Assembly and 7 senators. Its own provincial assembly consisted of 36 members. In the 19th century, cotton, coffee, and tobacco plantations joined those for sugarcane, and the discovery of diamonds in 1844 led to a large influx of washers, until the still larger deposits in South Africa came to light. A smaller boom hit Catete in 1872 upon the discovery of amethysts there. The cattle industry of the interior led to the development of Feira de Santana before collapsing in a series of droughts. Politics. After the end of military governments in Brazil in 1985, the state of Bahia was usually governed by PFL-PMDB. The Workers' Party achieved the governorship in 2007 and has held it ever since, in 3 successive elections. Demographics. According to IBGE data of 2008, there were 14,561,000 people residing in the state. The population density was 24.93 inhabitants per square kilometer. Urban population 67.4%, population growth 1.1%, houses 3,826,000. The last PNAD showed the following numbers: 9 million 149,000 brown people, 3 million white people, 2 million 328,000 black people, 42,000 Amerindian people, 37,000 Asian people. Historically, the population was estimated at 1.45 million in the 1870s and was 1.92 million at the time of the 1890 Brazilian census. Largest cities: tourism and recreation. Bahia is the most important tourist center in the northeast and the second in the country, as they are famous for the lands. The tourist product in Bahia, 50% of its global flow centered in Salvador, unites in a same space the characteristics of a natural landscape and a unique culture in the country, in which the typical culinary arts, the colonial architecture and popular feasts reveal a strong integration of elements of European and African origin in the formation and in the way of life of the people of Bahia. By its natural and historic cultural attractions, Bahia presents an enormous potential for the development of the tourist activity. Owner of the biggest portion of seacoast of the country and of singular views in its interior, Bahia possesses specific cultural, folklore and religious characteristics, manifest in its extensive calendar of popular festivities, in its architectonic patrimony and in its typical food. Salvador, with its historical center registered by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site and with its coast clipped into many beaches and dozens of islands, has a varied receptive infrastructure, composed of 170 hostelry units and 25,000 beds, further to restaurants, bars, nightclubs, shopping malls, theaters, craft centers, convention and fair center, rental agencies, tourist agencies, and other equipment and services. In the last few years, the state government promoted the total restoration of the Pelourinho, the biggest set of colonial-style buildings in Latin America, today transformed into an important point for visitation by tourists, that will find there a synthesis of what best Bahia has to offer in specialized services, in regional and international cooking, in architecture of the 17th and 18th centuries and in music, with daily shows by the great artists of Bahia, famous in the country and abroad. The period of popular festivities in Bahia has its high point between December and March and has in Carnival its supreme point, with more than 1 million tourists in Salvador, Porto Seguro and other cities of the state's tourist circuit. Education. The literacy rate in Bahia is 85%. Educational institutions: Universidade Federal da Bahia, Universidade Católica de Salvador, Instituto Federal da Bahia, Instituto Federal Baiano, Escola Bahiana de Medicina e Saúde Pública, Universidade Salvador, Universidade Federal de Recôncavo da Bahia, Universidade Estadual de Sudoeste da Bahia, Universidade Estadual de Santa Cruz, Universidade do Estado da Bahia, Universidade Estadual de Feira de Santana, Fundação Universidade Federal de Vale de São Francisco, Centro Universitário da Bahia, and many others. Culture. Bahia is the historical and cultural heart of Brazil. As the chief locus of the early Brazilian slave trade, Bahia is considered to possess the greatest and most distinctive African imprint, in terms of culture and customs, in Brazil. These include the Yoruba-derived religious system of candomblé, the martial art of capoeira, African-derived music such as samba, afoxé, and axé, and a cuisine with strong links to Western Africa. Bahia is the birthplace of many noted Brazilian artists, writers and musicians. Among the noted musical figures born in the state are Dorival Caymmi, João Gilberto Gil, the former country's Minister of Culture, Caetano Veloso, and his sister Maria Bethânia of the late 1960s and early 1970s, which ultimately gained international recognition. Gal Costa, Luis Caldas, Sarah Jane, Daniela Mercury, Ivete Sangalo, Carlin Haas Brown and Margaret Menezes. The city of Salvador is also home to famous groups known as Blocos Afros, including Olodum, Araqueto, E-Ochan, and Ilayye. Additionally, groups such as Chiquite com Banana also are based in Bahia. The first well-known rock roll singer in Brazil was also from Bahia. Born Raul Seekers, he was known as Maluco Beleza, or peaceful lunatic. In this manner means to be either in peace or tranquil. During the 19th century, one of Brazil's greatest poets, the Bahian abolitionist poet and playwright Castro Alves, a native of the Recôncavo city of Cachoeira, penned his most famous poem, Navio Negreiro, about slavery. The poem is considered a masterpiece of Brazilian Romanticism and a central anti-slavery text. Other notable Bahian writers include playwright and screenwriter Dias Gomes, Gregorio de Matos, who wrote during the 17th century and was one of the first Brazilian writers, and Fr. Antonio Vieira, who during the colonial period was one of many authors who contributed to the expansion of the Portuguese language throughout the Brazilian territory. One of Brazil's most prominent writers of the 20th century, Jorge Amado, was born in the southeastern Bahian city of Itabuna, and resided for many years in Salvador. His major novels include Gabriela, Clove and Cinnamon, Doña Flor and Her Two Husbands, and Tieta, the Goat Girl, all of which became internationally renowned films. Other notable authors from Bahia include the fiction writers João Ubaldo Ribeiro and historic writer Euclides da Cunha, who wrote Os Sertões. In the visual and plastic arts, one of the best-known Bahian figures was the multi-genre artist and Argentinian native Hector Julio Paride Bernardo, also known as Garibe. Fine examples of his work are visible in the Afro-Brazilian Museum in Salvador. Carnival. The Trio Elétricos sweep up whoever is in Salvador during Carnival. The Trio Elétricos floats with amplifiers used as moving stages, pass through 3 official circuits. Behind them, more than 2 million merrymakers dance along 25 kilometers of streets and avenues. Osmar's float goes from Campo Grande to Castro Alves Square in the town center. Dodo's float goes from Farol da Barra to Ondina, along the coast, and Batatina's float goes across the Pelourinho. The first is the oldest circuit. It is also where the event's most traditional groups parade. In the Dodo circuit, where the more famous artists' box seats are located, the party becomes lively toward the end of the afternoon, and it continues like this until morning.